Hey, what's up, fasters? Dr. LeGrand here for another video. And what we do talk about on this channel is different fasting and health tip videos, other alternative practices that you can do for your own health. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and hitting that subscribe button, notification bell, so you don't miss out on any other future videos. So let's get started right after this intro. For today, I'm going to talk about keto versus fasting. Now, I know a lot of you guys have emphasized showing more or talking about more about my experience versus just diving into the science, even though I do like to talk about a lot of the science, looking at the research. But today, I'm going to talk a lot more about my experience with doing keto as well as fasting, and also with my patients that go through doing keto and fasting. And this is just strictly my opinion. It doesn't mean it's concrete science. It's just based off of my experience and the experiences of my patients, so that you guys can make up your own decision as far as when it comes to keto and also fasting. So the first thing when it comes to keto versus fasting, what I have experienced, so I'm now expert when it comes to keto. I only did it for 2 months just to kind of see what it would be like for me. And it does require a lot more discipline, I would say, because you have that mindset, okay, if I'm gonna do this, you're going to clean out your fridge. You're going to make sure that you have all the stuff that doesn't have high carbs. So you kind of keep below that that 50 to 20 grams of carbs a day. For me, in order to stay in ketosis, I had to stay in the 20 grams, which was really difficult. So it required a lot more discipline. Whereas fasting, especially if you're going to just do a 24 or 36 or 48 or even 3 day, fast. It's not as much discipline. However, you should be more disciplined, because if you want the great results, then of course you want to be able to have good eating practices beforehand and after. The other thing between keto and fasting, keto, as we know, it puts you in ketosis, but really that's it. As far as it's really heavily focusing on bringing down your fat cells so you can lose that weight. That's why it's so popular, and a lot of doctors recommend it for people who are trying to lose weight. But of course, with being in ketosis, there's a lot of benefits, bringing down inflammation, also great for, bringing down your blood pressure, as well as people who have diabetes. So there's a lot of great benefits from it, but it's really heavily focusing on the keto aspect. Whereas fasting, on the other hand, as we know, it also puts us in ketosis, as well as increased levels of autophagy. And autophagy is great benefit because it does get rid of the old debris in our body. Because we do know, at least from Dr. Jason Fung, when they look at people who do still consume proteins, which when you're on the keto diet, it does shut off autophagy. So when you're fasting, obviously you're not consuming anything, so you're going to increase substantially your autophagy levels by 400%, even up to 500% I've seen. So really looking at that aspect, there is a lot more benefit when it comes to the health benefits through fasting versus keto. At least that's in my opinion. Now, one thing that I have experienced, as well as with my patients, the keto diet is very hard to sustain as a long lifestyle habit, because let's be honest, we really still love our carbs, we still love the ice cream, we still love, our treats that we like to have here and there. And not saying that you can't do that with keto, because there's definitely a lot of keto options like keto ice cream, but it's just not the same. And yes, you could take breaks, but then once you take a break, it takes you a couple weeks to get back into ketosis. So that's just a frustration that I found even when I was doing my 2 month long and I decided to take a break and then I kind of went back on. It was hard to kind of get back into it. Just like with any other diet, it's really difficult to get back in. Whereas fasting, on the other hand, why it's so popular and people really like it is because you could take a break, but it's very easy to jump back into fasting and really quickly to get an autophagy and ketosis real fast versus the keto diet. And so it's definitely more easier to put in as a lifestyle habit, to do it consistently all the time, weekly, and doing your quarterly, 7 day fast, stuff like that. That's easier to incorporate versus the keto diet. Now, there's some people that do. They've done it their whole life, or they've been doing it for several years. Kudos for you guys. But really, when it comes to my patients, they find it to be really difficult to sustain, especially for women, because they're not finding as many benefits from it, because sometimes they'll hit a plateau, or other people might hit a plateau. So it really just kind of depends. Now, the flip side of that is what I have seen and why it's so popular with the keto diet is the keto diet is really heavily focused and emphasized on weight loss. Whereas fasting, yes, you can lose weight, you can lose a significant amount of weight, but I look at it more of the health benefits, but also keto has health benefits. But it's definitely pushed by the media about keto losing weight, okay? And with that, since tend to be more disciplined, especially with the foods that you're consuming on a daily basis, keeping the weight off is more sustainable. The other side with fasting, the problem is that even for myself, I've struggled with this, my patients have struggled with this, is if you're using it for trying to lose weight and you're not changing your diet, you're just gonna hit yo-yo effects. You tend to think, okay, I could replace, the way I eat with fasting. It's not true. It's really difficult to be able to really sustain keeping the weight off if you're not changing your diet. Whereas keto, you're already changing your diet. So sustaining and keeping the weight off is going to be easier in the long run. But that being said, if you do the combo of keto and fasting, then it's a win-win situation. Or if you incorporate another, healthy lifestyle of eating along with fasting, then yes, that's going to be more beneficial. But really what I've seen just from my patients, they tend to have an easier time using the keto to lose weight versus just only incorporating fasting and thinking they can just eat whatever they want. Now a lot of you know this, but the keto diet tends to be more socially acceptable, publicly acceptable. Doctors recommend it versus fasting. On the other hand, doctors totally discourage it. I'm like one of the only doctors I have been told, even by my patients who are trying to seek after me, that really highly recommend fasting because the science it's backed up by a lot of science, and that's why I highly recommend it. But as far as the conventional medical fields, they really highly promote keto, but not so much fasting. They will promote intermittent fasting, but when we're talking about prolonged fasting, it's really frowned upon. So that's kind of, the toss-up with when it comes to keto versus fasting. People will tend to do keto because it's highly encouraged versus prolonged fasting, not so much. You're kind of on your own there. The last thing I'll talk about is why fasting might be a bigger thing that people would like to do is because you tend to get faster results versus the keto. So what I mean by that, if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, your two big common things that keto really help reduce, fasting will get to those results at a faster pace, especially when you start doing prolonged fasting. So it might be more appealing. Even with weight loss, if it's done correctly, you can lose weight at a faster rate versus keto. But it is also, again, going back to what I was saying before, it takes a lot more discipline on the fasting aspect because it's best to try to change your diet versus, change your diet before you start doing fasting, because then you already have that implemented. So what I say, which one's better? Well, I wouldn't say one is better than over the other, because if you incorporate both keto and fasting, that is a win-win. Because if you start changing your diet before you start doing fasting, especially starting to do prolonged fasting, you already have that discipline in place, and you'll have far better benefits if you start implementing that as well. So what do you guys think? I'm curious, do you think keto is better than fasting, or vice versa? You think fasting is better? What are your thoughts? What are your experiences? Leave that in the comment section below. I know everybody would really appreciate it to leave your experience of what you have experienced between keto and fasting. So if you're new here and haven't subscribed to our channel, hit the subscribe button. I will also leave some playlists here of fasting and a little bit of the keto video I've done in the past. Just check out. And until next time, this is Dr. LeGrand signing out. Thanks. Bye.